Part two. Hey y'all. So I'm back with part two of this very short mini 2-video series talking about types and levels of exercise as you prepare to re-engage or to engage into a fitness regimen for yourself. So I just want to kind of recap what we talked about in part one. This overall series was about levels of impact and intensity, being no impact, low impact, moderate, and then high. And in part one, I talked about no impact and low impact and the differences between the two and the type of exercises that fall into those categories. And just as a refresher, when we're talking about no impact, that means that at any given time, both feet are going to be on the ground at the same time, or we're going to be off of our feet completely. So maybe sitting down, maybe lying down on our back or our stomach, engaged in the exercise. If we're swimming, we're still vertical in the swimming pool where there is absolutely no weight bearing on the joints, and the joints being your knees, your ankles, your hips, and in some cases your back or your spine. And so that was low impact. And then we also talked in that video about low impact, and where low impact was just one step up to where there was minimal impact on the joints. And so at any given time, we would have at least one foot on the ground. So that may involve marching or walking, but at least one foot is down and there wasn't the major bouncing and impact. So now we want to move on to the other two categories, and that is moderate and high intensity. And you will notice that I have shifted the language, as I mentioned in part one, from impact to intensity. Now, many people use them interchangeably when they're talking about fitness, but there is a distinct difference. Now, impact, when you're at moderate and high, there is impact, period. So it's not always necessary to distinguish that, because that is the nature of moderate and high, is that there is going to be impact. What does change a little bit between the two is the intensity. When you get at that level, not only are you focused on the amount of jumping or bounding, bouncing, which impacts the level of weight bearing on your joints, but you're also concerned about your heart rate, right? And so that's where the intensity comes in with these two, is you're looking at how high, how much have you increased your heart rate during the actual exercise. So for moderate intensity, we are looking at increasing the heart rate anywhere from 50 to 70% of your resting heart rate. Now, there's lots of tricks. I could do a whole video on how to measure your heart rate and what is a good resting heart rate versus, what it should be at for different types of exercise. But just for the sake of numbers, let's just say if your resting heart rate is 70 beats per minute. Then if you want to increase that by 50%, then 50% would be an additional 35 beats per minute. So you'd want your heart rate to be at 105 during the active exercise. That would be kind of your target heart rate. So that's just an example of what it would look like at moderate intensity, anywhere from 50 to 70% increase of that heart rate. And so what are some examples? What does that look like? Again, let's go back to the impact. When we're talking about moderate, now we are moving from having one foot on the ground to moments where both feet are actually off the ground. And so in situations like the others where we're talking about walking, now we're looking at maybe jogging. And if you know anything about race walking, you know what the judges are looking for is any part of one foot on the ground at all times, right? Once both feet come off the ground, even for a brief moment before that next foot it has impact on the ground, that is now considered jogging or running. So that's what it looks like at moderate intensity. We are now maybe doing some jogging exercises. We're maybe doing some aerobic exercises. Because the aerobics, and I'm referring to actual aerobics, but the aerobics classes, there's a lot of bouncing and jumping, and side to side, kind of bounding from side to side. So that is going to fall in that category. And then some dance fitness classes. Now, if you're doing line dance, you're probably still at low impact, right? Because your feet are going to be on the ground, at least 1 foot. But there are some higher level dance classes, like a high level Zumba class or some of our hip hop fitness classes that are really, really engaged and may fall in that moderate impact or moderate intensity. So one of the things that we use as a gauge when we're talking about heart rate and trying to measure whether we're at moderate or high is a talk test. Can you engage in somewhat of a conversation while you are engaged in the physical activity? Now, we're not talking about being able to sing or do anything like that. If you're able to sing, then you're probably still at low impact. But you should want to be able to engage in at least some level of a conversation. So that's usually the talk test to determine whether you're at that targeted heart rate range for moderate versus whether you're at high intensity. If you can't talk, then you're probably at higher intensity. So that is just one gauge that we use. And so who is this category good for? Now, I mentioned the categories for no impact and low impact. And most of those folks, if they're in those categories, they need to stay in low impact and no impact. If they are dealing with recovering from an injury, if they've had surgery and we're recovering from that, if they have things like arthritis and chronic joint issues or chronic pain, fibromyalgia, they're probably going to want to stay in those categories. That's not something they're going to progress up to. However, I did talk about the group of folks who may be just starting out in a fitness program. And because they're starting out, depending on what their fitness level is, they may be starting at a no or a low impact. But the goal is not necessarily for them to stay there. The goal is for them to get stronger cardiovascularly and stronger muscularly. Is that a word, muscularly? Just get stronger in both of those areas so that they can progress up to a higher level. So those are the folks who may now want to move to a moderate intensity exercise. They've been at one level for a while. They're starting to feel comfortable. It's starting to feel a little too easy. And so they want to push themselves or challenge themselves. And now they're moving up to this level. And so what's the benefit of that? Of course, we are wanting to increase our cardiovascular health. That really is the goal at this level because, again, you're wanting to increase your heart rate. So we wanted to increase your heart health. So that takes a lot of the pressure off your organs and having to work so hard to allow you to do regular things like going up and down the stairs. I keep talking about going up and down the stairs. Can you tell that's a problem of mine? But then also, to increase your lifespan. If all other things are in line, this will increase your lifespan. And what I mean by that is, of course, we got to be eating the right things, and we can't be engaged in self-destructive behaviors or risky behaviors that will put our lives at risk. But if we're doing all of those other things and then increasing our cardiovascular exercise, then that is going to increase our lifespan, right? And not just increase our lifespan, because we don't want to just live longer and have a horrible life. We want to live longer with good quality life. So that's the goal. Now, moving on to high intensity, right? High impact. So these are the folks that are darn near airborne, right? They are all over the place. It's like the ADHD of exercise, right? They're jumping, they're bounding, they're bouncing, they're doing all of the things. And I mean all of the things, right? So what kinds of exercises would fall into this? Your HIIT exercises. If it says HIIT, I mean, hello, high intensity is the first part of that exercise. Those are high intensity interval training exercises. Yeah, that falls in this category. Our sprinters, right? So we've gone from maybe biking at no impact to walking at low impact to jogging and running at moderate intensity. And now we're at high intensity. Now we're not just running, but we're running fast and we're sprinting, right? I mean, we are like flying. So you're doing sprinting exercises, you're doing plyometrics, again, the jumping and the bouncing, you're all over the place, right? You're doing the tuck jumps, if you know what a tuck jump is, where your hands are out straight and you're jumping and you're hitting your hands with your knees. You're not bringing your hands down to your knees, you're keeping them up and bringing your knees up to your hands. You're doing bounds, you're doing box jumps, you know, all the plyometric bounding exercises. And then a lot of our sports fall in this. I haven't talked about sports yet, but a lot of our sports fall in this category. Our basketball, our soccer, our tennis, I mean, they are running very fast up and down the court. They are jumping, definitely having both feet off the ground at any given time during the activity. So those are things that would fall in this category. The goal at high intensity is to increase the heart rate super fast. So you want the heart rate to go up fast. You are really challenging your cardiovascular endurance and strength, and you want to burn a lot of calories. So these types of exercises are going to be really engaged. They're going to be really fast because heart rate is going up. You're wanting to burn a lot of calories in a short period of time. Now, let me just say, in this category, this is really targeted towards our younger population, and I say our younger population because definitely younger than me. But those who are maybe, I'm gonna say under 40, but honestly, I really wanna say under 30, because at 30 is when, you know, body changes start to take place and we start to have issues with bone density and joint health. But just for the sake of some of our powerhouses out there, I'm gonna say under 40 is good for this category. And then of course our athletes, right? Because the goal in doing a lot of these types of exercises is to strengthen your bone density, is to increase your overall strength, is to increase your speed. And so these type of exercises are going to do that for you, but it is not something that is sustainable. Like, you can't continue to do these types of exercises with any positive degree of overall health into your 60s, 70s, and 80s. You just can't. So it's not something you're going to want to be doing long term. But if you are in a younger stage, you're really athletic, you're really involved, you may do these exercises for that short-term benefit. So I do want to be clear about that. Those groups I talked about earlier with the pain and the joint issues, and we're not, Now, I've been guilty. I've had arthritis since I was in my 20s, and I have been guilty of doing high impact HIIT training because I enjoy it. But my body is said, please stop. Please, for the love of God, stop. And so you gotta listen to your body, and I'm guilty of that too. So please heed that warning. We don't want, our goal is to prevent injury, and pushing yourself too much when your body is not capable or able or willing is going to just increase the chances of injury. So that's really it. That's moderate intensity, high intensity, and who those types of exercises are good for. I just wanted to share that because I feel like if we have the knowledge is a huge part of really understanding where we might need to be when we engage into any kind of exercise routine or re-engage into an exercise routine. Really being able to use that knowledge to start in the right place, that's going to give us the best benefit. And give us the results that we desire, because that's ultimately the goal, right? We all have these goals we want to achieve or results we want to see, and being empowered with understanding where you fit into this fitness lifestyle is really the key to getting to those results in a healthy